And for more on this, I am joined by Jamal, Abdi, Policy Director of the National Iranian
Here is that Obama has pressured Israel on other areas. There's clearly a campaign right now to try to ratchet up the pressure for yet another U.S. attack on a Middle Eastern country. On the nuclear issue, and you're only going to sanction it.
Hi, I'm Nobar from NIAC, and I'm here with Jamal Abdi for another episode of our Professional Profiles video. We're here to speak with you all about how to take the next steps to become a future Capitol Hill employee or a future policy expert. That's something that Jamal has a little bit of experience with, and so he's kindly offered to take the time to speak with you all and answer, hopefully, your questions via online. A little bit about Jamal. He is NIAC's policy director, and he came on board in November 2009. But prior to coming to NIAC, he spent a few years working on Capitol Hill. He was working for a member of Congress from his home state of Seattle. And again, prior to that, he was spending some time in his home state leading some campaigns on the congressional level. So, Jamal, I guess let's go ahead and start at the very beginning. Did you always know that you wanted to pursue a career in policy or politics?
No, I didn't always know. I was definitely always passionate about politics and policy, but I thought about doing like journalism, or I kind of explored a lot of different fields, and really at the end of the day I realized that I was so passionate about politics that I actually wanted to get involved. And in getting involved sort of early on in campaigns and things like that, I found the energy of working in politics and trying to affect change either locally or nationally, just really inspiring. So I decided to pursue it as a career.
And you said you started by working on campaigns. How old were you, and when is it too soon for all the high school students out there, for example? Do they have, should they take advantage of campaigns? And if so, how do they get involved? And then for the college level students, how do they get involved in campaigns while managing their schoolwork?
I don't know, how they manage their schoolwork. That's up to you. But, I did things like, I was never the kid who was running for president or even student council, but I think that's an easy way to pick somebody out who may be inclined to do politics. I started out from a policy side of things. I was interested in particular policy issues, but I did work on some campaigns like, local referendums, petitions, things like that in high school, just sort of, on the side. My first couple jobs were actually doing like petition taking, which, it was helpful to interact with people and sort of become versed in political debate, even if it's just like, arguing with some old lady outside of the grocery store. But really, when I was in college, I got involved in congressional campaigns, and I think that, that every 2 years you have congressional elections, you have local elections, you have local referendums and things like that. So there are tons of opportunities to get involved, whether it's volunteering or during the summer doing internships and potentially getting a tiny amount of pay, although campaign work doesn't really pay a whole lot, at least when you're getting started. I would recommend, if you want to come to DC, if you want to get involved working on the Hill, volunteer at your local member of Congress's office, get involved in either doing their daily operations, answering phones, doing constituent services. They definitely always need volunteers for that sort of thing. Or during campaign season, actually get involved in campaigns and do canvassing, phone banking, things like that.
Okay, so it sounds like there are a lot of extracurricular things that students can do to start and get their feet wet, so to speak. When they get to college, however, what do you recommend as far as course load? Is there a particular major, a particular minor, a particular student group or activity that you recommend that they get involved in?
Yeah, there's, you have like the Young Democrats, Young Republicans, the campus groups, and I think those are helpful to get involved with. I definitely think that there's no recipe for coming to DC and getting work in one of these fields. It does help. You can specialize in the field. You can work on, if you want to do foreign policy stuff, study international relations, and you can come to DC and try to work for a shop that does that kind of thing. Or if you want to go to the Hill, like what I did, I studied poli-sci with a focus on international relations. Then I came to the Hill, and I wanted to do international affairs, but I had to first, work on stuff that I didn't necessarily have as much interest in. But I think what's most important really is, developing these networks, getting versed in like how politics works, whether it's at a local level or, your summers, come to DC, intern in a member of Congress's office, and get to learn how things work in Washington, DC. I think that that's extremely valuable. And yeah, really just look for opportunities to build your network, because when you come here, you're not necessarily going to get hired based on your expertise in a particular field. You're probably going to get hired based on your connections to, connections to the state, connections to various campaigns or, issue campaigns, and then you can sort of build up to be able to work on things that you actually came here to work on.
Okay, so for those students who may be a little bit older, and let's say that they've already finished their undergrad experience, is there a particular graduate program or coursework that you recommend, or is it even necessary?
I think that it's more important. It depends on what you want to do, but it's more important to actually get some real-world experience and to, I would say come to DC and figure out what you actually want to study, where you want to specialize, and go that route. Versus, I know a lot of people, and I'm not saying this is a bad thing, but going straight from undergrad to law school, and then they find that they are overqualified for a lot of the positions that are out there for them. I think there are a lot of lawyers right now in DC who are looking for jobs and having to take things like legislative correspondent or staff assistant positions that they definitely didn't think they were going to school for 7 years to do that. They end up having to cut their teeth doing that first. So I would say, whether you do it simultaneously or you first do it and then go to school, get some work experience, get to know people, broaden your network, and go that route.
Okay, and you mentioned the importance of networking. I think it's one of those things that's easier said than done. A lot of times people know they can go to events and take business cards, but then what? Do you have any key pointers on how people can build upon relations, and also, not just make that one-time connection, but really grow that connection so that down the line it can help them get a position?
Yeah, you just gotta do it. You might feel kind of silly going up to people and introducing yourself, or going to these events where you don't necessarily know anybody, but you just gotta be there. And it's helpful to follow through. It's helpful to take a real interest in what people are doing and to really know what you're talking about. And, if you're going to an event to meet a person, know what you're going to talk to them about, know their background. But I don't think there's any harm in just putting yourself out there and taking risks, and you're not going to set yourself back by just looking for all the opportunities you can to meet people and get your name out there and make sure they know who you are, and then follow through. And then you never know, down the road you may end up needing their help for something, and it's just good to know as many people as possible. And also be really charming and smart and funny.
Of course.
Helpful.
Yes. So you talk about knowing the person or knowing the position prior to going and meeting with these individuals. And I know that you work on the federal level. Are there any resources, be it online resources, key newspapers, whatever it may be, that you recommend students refer to so that they can easily find out about issues? And again, this is specific to federal level.
it is helpful to understand how DC works. What is the language and the culture and the structure of how government and how Washington works. And so, I mean, I think a lot of students probably do this, but, you know, monitor I mean, nowadays, you know, be on Twitter, monitor the local, I mean, there's like Politico and Roll Call and The Hill. Those are the Hill rags that everybody sort of reads on The Hill. But I really think that nowadays you can be immersed in the culture of DC by being involved in social media, trying to sort of build a profile through that format. And I mean, you know, just being cognizant of, I mean, all the forms of media that there are, the print media, but also, you know, TV media, and even your Facebook profile. If you come to DC and you end up wanting to do stuff seriously, your personal life is basically going to become your professional life, and so you should consider that a way that you're marketing yourself as well. So.
Now you left Capitol Hill and you came to NIAC. So you left the pure political scene and focusing more solely on policy. Why did you decide to make that transition? Well, I mean, me personally, I came to DC to work on foreign policy and to work on, I mean, my top issue really was U.S.-Iran relations and wanting to figure out a better way for the U.S. and Iran to, you know, conduct diplomacy and prevent war and things like that. So I had an opportunity to do that, and I seized it. But I do think that, you know, working on the Hill, it can be, it's a really, it builds a lot of opportunities for you. So not everybody wants to go to the Hill and start off answering phones and then work their way up, writing letters to constituents and things like that. But there's really no replacement for that, and once you have done that for a few years, you become sort of a commodity. Then these outside organizations who work a lot on the Hill and who want to affect change by working through the legislative process, you know, they end up looking at that skill set as something that you can't get any other way. You can't study it or read about it. You have to be there. And so, I mean, I would just say, you know, it can be frustrating to work on the Hill or to work in politics starting out, and I mean, it's still obviously it's frustrating, but in you know, in doing that, you build up to being able to, you know, really pull big levers for change and really have the opportunity to make real differences. And the only way you can do that is by being here and by putting in the hard work and being passionate, being willing to sacrifice. I'm doing that, and I can continue to do that, and I would encourage everybody else to do that too who's passionate. Great. We end every professional profile video with the same question, so I will ask you. What is the #1 do and the #1 don't for students who want to pursue a career in politics or in the policymaking spheres?
I mean, I'm sure there are plenty of don'ts. I would say, look, do figure out what you actually want to change. Figure out what you're passionate about. You're not going to make enough money to make it worthwhile if you don't believe in what you're doing. You have to have real conviction. So figure out what that is and be prepared to sacrifice for it. I would warn people, you know, it's very partisan out here. So whether you like it or not, you do end up usually having to choose a side. And if you go work for a Democratic office, you're probably going to be not working in Republican congressional offices later on. You sort of have to choose that pathway. So, you know, I would say that a don't is, you know, don't commit to anything that you're not prepared to stick with, whether it's, you know, on the partisan side or on the policy side. You're going to pave your path, and that's the path you're going to be on for a while, so make sure that you believe in it.
Thank you so much, Jamal, and thank you all for tuning in.